Hello, fellow nerds. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about my Wildemount campaign. And the reason behind this is, for one, I haven't recorded a video in ages. I think 8 months at least. And the other reason is I need to remind myself of what happened in my campaign. We are at the moment in the summer break, these long stretches of time where the players just can't make it, so we are on a little bit of a hiatus. But I hope to pick up again in September, maybe October, and a lot of things happened, and I made the mistake of offering too many quests, and my players can't really say no to NPCs except for one, so they collected quite a few quests and I have to keep track of them. So this is for your entertainment and to remind myself of where we are in the story. So my players made it to the next big region and they chose Darktow Isle. It's slowly turning into a pirate campaign. They arrive, they've settled in, they've already leveled up quite a bit. If I remember correctly, they are all level 5 by now. God, I really need to remember this. Anyway, they are not as squishy as they used to be, which poses another problem for me. I really struggle with scaling encounters. They either fly through it without taking damage, or they nearly die. I just can't balance encounters. Anyway, so I thought we are going to have a look at Darktow Isle, and then I'm going to tell you about the NPCs I added. I wouldn't go so far as to say that I'm homebrewing a lot, but I'm adding a lot. I'm using the campaign guide, and then I'm throwing in what I find interesting. I took a complete quest from the Saltmarsh campaign book and just put it in here because it's also pirates, seafaring folk, ocean enemies. It just fit nicely, so I threw that in. Anyway, they made it to Darktow Isle. Now, what does the campaign book say about that? The volcanic rock that forms the jagged cliffs of Darktow Isle is wildly varied in height and shape, creating the impression of a massive, toothy maw. These rocks hide many caverns and tunnels that have inspired numerous local myths of secret hideouts and legendary beasts. The island is barren of greenery, save for the verdant basin in its center, known to the locals as the Pit. This small pocket of jungle is the largest source of natural resources on the isle, and its fruit, game and timber sustain the pirate haven in lean times. The dark shallow reefs that surround Darktow Isle have claimed many ships over the years. Their wrecked skeletons have been dragged atop the rocks as an additional barrier to intruders and as a warning to trespassers. A dragon turtle named Edok stalks the reefs, but an accord between the cunning creature and the Plank King himself keeps Edok away from pirate vessels. In return, the dragon turtle can do whatever it wishes with any other ships that enter the island's twisted waterways. The denizens of Darktow have further fortified the reefs with sentry posts, hidden weaponry, and deployable pitfalls to prevent unauthorized entry through the southern channel. The defenders of the channel have orders to fire without warning on any ships that do not fly the colors of the revelry. Well, Edok, the dragon turtle, is of course the first thing that I put in place for my players to meet. I gave them the choice to start with Edok or with the planking. I made it compulsory for them to meet Edok and to introduce themselves. And they did so in a very interesting manner, and the dice weren't with them that day. So if I remember correctly, they bought a couple of melons because one of my NPCs, an elf cleric named Kilian with a lot of apostrophes in his name, Kilian mentioned that Edok has been behaving a bit strangely as of late. He wasn't quite sure what could have caused it. Maybe she's just in a mood, maybe she was in a fight, maybe her mate left her or died, maybe she's pregnant. He didn't know, and he asked the group to maybe ask a couple of questions if they're going to introduce themselves anyway. And he also suggested that they bring gifts to get on Edok's good side. Now, one of my players' character's backstory is tied loosely to Darktow Isle. She's been here before, she knows the people, she has history with some of them, and shows she has further knowledge of how things work here. And she knows Edok. And she told the group that Edok likes snacks. I mean, who doesn't? So the group decided to combine quests. The quartermaster, another NPC I added, basically hired the group to catch 3 moorbounders that have escaped from a ship and were not quite terrorizing the village, but made the outskirts, less than safe. So my players went and took care of the moorbounders, and the original plan was to take the moorbounders' corpses as snacks for the dragon turtle. So far so good. Now, my players are rather pacifist, and of course they didn't kill the moorbounders, they befriended them. We have a druid in the group, and she rolls exceptionally well. They befriended the moorbounders, brought them back. Of course they couldn't bring themselves to feed live moorbounders to the dragon turtle, so they brought the moorbounders back to the village and basically dumped them on the poor quartermaster, who now hates them, not the moorbounders, the group. The idea was to give the moorbounders to the planking, who was like, I'm not gonna put giant cats in my home, that seems dangerous, no thank you, take them away. And then they dumped them on Codex, the quartermaster, and they are now his problem, and he's never going to forgive the group. So they had no snacks for Edok. Then they bought a couple of melons, I think, and a bit of game, pigs' heads and stuff, and filled the melons with alcohol for whatever reason, and offered them to Edok, who was quite happy to receive gifts, and I had them all roll in order to throw the alcohol melons into Edok's mouth. They all failed except the ranger. I think that's the player with the backstory tied to Darktow Isle. I think she made it, barely. But you know, Edok is used to a lot, so she just picked the melons off the water, no harm done, and chatted a bit with the druid. It turns out the druid speaks primordial, if I remember correctly, and the dragon turtle speaks draconian because she's a dragon, and also aquan because she's an ocean creature. It turns out all the elemental languages are subcategories of primordial, and the rule book indeed states that if you speak and understand primordial, you understand elemental languages, which turned into a huge problem for me later on. But okay, our druid had a nice chat with Edok, and it turns out she was a bit miffed. Edok, not the druid. She was a bit miffed because one of her favorite napping spots along the island had turned too warm for her liking. And she asked, or rather demanded, my players go get rid of that problem. And because she's a nice ancient dragon turtle with cute eyes or whatever, they couldn't say no, and agreed to go check on her napping spots, which took the group quite far up north on the island. So they put that on their list of things to take care of. Now, how to get there? They are very efficient in combining quests. They went back and talked to the cleric, told him something's up in the north. He warned them that it's a dangerous area, and in that moment the cleric channeled the dungeon master, me, telling my players, it's dangerous up there, maybe do something else first. Hint, hint. So they did, and they prepared. They took another quest, and this is one that was indeed in the Explorer's Guide to Wildemount, a mid-level adventure, and it was about Bloody Maggie's crew, one of the pirate captains. And the only info the campaign guide gives us is the characters are hired by Bloody Maggie, chaotic neutral female human bandit captain of the pirate ship Dragon Turtle, to find out who or what keeps murdering members of her crew. The characters eventually catch the culprit, Blue Matita, a revenant who wants revenge on Bloody Maggie and her crew for leaving her behind during a Clovis Concord raid on one of their safe houses. The revenant tries to recruit the characters to her cause. That's all the campaign guide gives me. So I added the crew, of course. and turned it into a bit of a murder mystery. I had asked my players prior to this if they were willing to do this kind of quest, because murder mysteries isn't everybody's cup of tea, and that's fine. And I like to make sure everybody's having fun. So I asked them, and most of them were like, yeah, okay, let's do it, as long as I don't overdo it. And this was this quest. So I added a bit of info. So we have Captain Bloody Maggie, who ordered Matita be left behind during that raid in order to save the majority of her crew. Now, leaving people behind is against the pirate code, which then led to tension amongst her remaining crew members. Then there is Yoni, a half-elf, and he's the first mate. He was very pissed when he found out that Matita was left behind, and is ever since distrustful of the captain, but not so much that he would start a mutiny. Then we have Eral Silver-Eye Thales. Yes, that Thales, they are related. He's a drow, and he's the quartermaster aboard the Dragon Turtle. He is very fatalistic. He has a weird relationship with death, because he believes in the Luxon and in reincarnation, so death isn't really the end of anything, just another step. Which then explains why he isn't as angry or sad about Matita's death, because even though she's not a drow and she doesn't believe in the Luxon, he thinks everybody is kind of reincarnated, maybe, or maybe he didn't really think this through, but he doesn't generally see death as the end to anything. So he doesn't quite get why Yoni and Yenna, the next NPC I invented, are so upset. Now, Blind Yenna is a gnome, and she's the scout. Now, she isn't really blind, that's just her nickname. And she is by far the most haunted by what happened. She talked with Killian, the cleric, about it, and she has nightmares, and she thinks she can hear Matita call for help, and she's traumatized by what happened. But Yoni, Eral, and Yenna, as well as Captain Maggie, are still alive. Now, there have been 4 deaths aboard the Dragon Turtle. They all occurred at sea, and they were all weird, hence the murder mystery. The first to die was Halgard, a human male, and he was found suffocated, just like that. The next to die was Aranea, a human female, and she was found drowned without any water being near her. She drowned in her hammock, I think. Then the next one was Bingo Lubin, a dwarf, and he just, in the middle of the day, stumbled, fell down a flight of stairs, and broke his neck. Very unusual of him, because he's usually really foot sure, and it happened just like that, aboard a ship he knows in the dark. And the last one to die was Gola, a female orc, and she was the navigator. And she just didn't wake up one morning. So we have these 4 weird deaths that drove the rest of the crew insane in various degrees. Yoni was more concerned with how Maggie dealt with the situation, and Maggie got really paranoid to the point where she nearly threw hands with our rogue, who didn't take kindly to being spoken to like that, but they came around. So they offered to find out what's going on. Now, the end of the story is that the 4 people who died were in Matita's squad and actively left her behind. They knew what they were doing, and they made the active choice to leave her behind and follow Maggie's orders to leave Matita behind. And that's why Matita went for these 4 and then started tracking the captain. Now, the fight aboard the Dragon Turtle was I don't want to say disappointing. It's one of those moments where I, as a DM, was so very proud of my players and so annoyed at how badly it went for me, because Matita didn't land a single hit on any of them. I rolled so poorly. Yeah. And I think it took 5 rounds or less for them to finish her, a fully fledged revenant. I mean, they didn't finish her because she's a revenant, but they didn't figure that out. They believed that once they burned the body, everything was done, but that's not how revenants work. Basically, Matita's soul can move into another corpse and continue hunting Maggie, which she will do, but my players don't know that. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to deal with it. Maybe I have Maggie die off screen and my players just hear about that. Maybe they overhear a conversation in the local pub, or the planking wants to talk to them. Maybe he's suspecting them. I don't know that. Or maybe I just forget about it and move on. So that quest they handled at sea, because all the death occurred at sea, and the logic was that Matita, or whatever's happening aboard that ship, is going to happen once they leave harbor. So my players hit 2 birds with 1 stone. They asked Maggie to take them up north, and I think on the first night or the second morning, I'm not sure, Matita attacked. They handled that really well, and they continued up north to where Edok is known to nap. And so they entered a very cool looking sort of lava, magma, volcanic environment. One of my players was like, this looks like one of those level 50 World of Warcraft regions, and we just stumbled in there at level 10, which is not too far off, to be honest, but well, they can always turn around and go back. So they explored the region a bit, and two of my players are very much into alchemy and herbalism and stuff, so I had them find a couple of cool plants and roots and stuff for them to make poisons, and some homebrew potion I found online which bolsters constitution for an hour. That really bolsters it, like +5 or something. And they looked around. A lot of time for role playing. They are really, really good at that, all of them. And then they found the magma pool, which used to be Edoc's sleeping sort of nest, I think, which was now filled with lava. Not normal, way too hot for the poor dragon turtle. Now what happened? It turns out a bunch of fire elementals moved from the volcano in the center of the island into this pool. And my idea was to have them finally, fight something and have me as a DM fight back properly. But as I told you, the druid knows primordial and just chatted with the fire elementals. And they told her that they had to leave their home volcano because the big shadow had moved in. And that's when everyone's ears pricked up. Big shadow in the volcano. And they soon figured out that a dragon had made its nest there, and the elementals also spoke of smaller shadows that can't fly yet. So we have a couple of dragon babies, young dragons, and a mother dragon who's very protective of her children, of course. So the group decided to go and check out the dragon's nest. I had them cross a couple of lava fields, and they had to avoid exploding mushrooms and pits of sulfur, and with jumping and dex checks and figuring out how to safely get across. Again, they rolled really well. Good for them. I don't want anyone to die by falling in a lava pit or anything, but it's dangerous. It's a dangerous environment, and they probably shouldn't go after a dragon at level 5. But here we are. And that's basically where we left off last session. They snuck into a sort of canyon thing and saw the first baby dragon. Someone, I think it was one of the elf siblings, tossed a piece of gold in the dragon baby's direction, which caught its attention, and it turned away and they snuck past. Very clever. But they definitely know that there's real dragons about. And that's where we left off. Everybody sneaking past the dragon, obsessed with a gold coin. I honestly don't know how to proceed from there. I planned a dragon encounter, but I planned it for much, much later. But once they were by the lava pool, the party decided to, let's just go check it out. And I just couldn't divert them without being too obvious. So now they're going to check out the dragon. Maybe I'll have the mother be ill, or disabled in any form, meaning drastically reducing her HP. Or maybe I have her be on the hunt when they get there, so that they just have to deal with dragon wormlings, I think would be the stat block for the young dragon babies. I don't know. Or the druid is just going to talk her way out of it. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Now, long term, I want them to leave Darktow Isle. There isn't that much to do. There's still a half-finished quest, the one I took from Ghosts of Saltmarsh, which could win them their own ship if they're clever about it. But with that quest they got the hint that they are under-leveled for it, because it deals with strong magic. And I don't quite remember whether they were going to do that or not. I'll have to ask them. Anyway, long term I want them to leave the island and move to the next region, which will be tied to the elf siblings' backstory, because the two of them are looking for their sister, and depending on where they want to go, that's where their sister is not going to be, but she's going to have been there previously. I'm planning for them to either go to Port Damali and have a city environment, big city environment with a local thief guild, and maybe throw in a heist, I don't know. And the other big region I want them to go to eventually would be the Dwendalian Empire, which also ties into another open quest they are still carrying around. Way back in Broken Bank they promised the harbor master to go look for his missing daughter, missing in air quotations. The party just knows that she's gone. They are not quite sure yet whether she's been kidnapped, whether she left with her secret boyfriend, or whether she left of her own accord and is traveling alone. Now they found a couple of not illegal books, but the kind of books that can get you in trouble, about the betrayer gods and Lolth, and they found a map with 2 locations marked in the Dwendalian Empire and some cryptic notes. That's going to give the party the opportunity to delve into the calamity background of the overall setting. And that's going to happen in the Dwendalian Empire. I don't have them prepared yet fully, but there are going to be 2 locations where they can find weapons of the betrayer gods. And the harbor master's daughter is somehow involved with that. Either she's on a sort of teenage Tomb Raider mission, going on a big adventure, or she's been lured into a cult. I don't know yet. It's just one way to get my players into the world of Wildemount. And the other route is to follow the missing sister. And I think I'm going to prioritize that because I I'd rather have my players tying up loose ends in their backstories than finishing a quest I came up with myself. So I definitely want them to find their sister. And I want it to be a happy ending, but it's very tempting to follow some hints in the backstory that would make for a very, very fine tragic ending. I think this is something I'll have to carefully check in with my two players, whether they are open to something tragic happening to their characters. You know, I want everybody to have fun, and before we started playing this campaign, in session 0 so to speak, I asked them all about limits, stuff they don't want to do ever. And I think that would be the time to check in with them and ask them what's okay and what's not with regard to their sister. Especially since these two players are very good at role playing and they get very into character, and we're playing online, and it's, on the one hand, playing online is easy because I can show better pictures and cool maps and text them individual hints and stuff like that, but role playing wise I don't see their faces for the most part. It's sometimes difficult to gauge everyone's headspace, so this is going to be something I have to talk to them about before we get there. But before I can do that, we have to defeat the biggest villain in any D&D campaign. Finding a date where everybody's available. Yeah. But as they say, distance makes the heart grow fonder, and looking forward to something spices things up. So I'm hoping for the next session in September, October, which gives me a lot of time to plan ahead, which I'm not going to do because I always plan my sessions the evening before, no matter how often I promise myself not to do that anymore. I always do it the evening before. Well, maybe I need that kind of pressure. Anyway, I'm looking very much forward. I love this campaign and I love this group, and they keep telling me they're having fun. So everybody's having fun. What more do you want? So that's going to be it for today. I know this isn't the usual kind of video I do, but I just wanted to sit down and talk to you and collect my thoughts, go through my notes, and just spitball where we're going from here. And I know I have been gone for a very long time. I see all your comments, I see the emails, I have my notifications turned on for comments and new subscribers and stuff. So I read your comments. I know you've been asking about me, where I am and if everything's alright, which is very kind of you. And yes, everything is alright, and this video is me hopefully returning to a more regular uploading schedule. I'm hoping to maybe get a video out once a month, maybe every other month, but I'm not going to promise you that I won't vanish for almost 9 months again, because life gets in the way, but I'm trying my best not to. So, as usual, it's been a pleasure having you around. I hope you found this relaxing and enjoyable, and you learned a bit about my campaign and how I run it, how I run my table. And until next time, see you then. Bye bye, fellow nerds.